Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Metro Board activities for March 7th, 2024. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before we begin, I'll ask our Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, Teresa Empasado, to provide today's safety contact. Good morning, Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the event of an alarm activation, we'll exit this conference room via the glass doors and proceed into the lobby and await further instructions from the security team. If we are instructed to exit the building, I'll lead the group to our designated assembly point while the security team coordinates with first responders. There's an AED located at the entry desk, and in the event of an emergency, I'll retrieve the AED and render aid while awaiting emergency services. Lastly, restrooms are located in the vestibule area adjacent to this conference room. As you are going about your Metro trip, if you see something that doesn't quite seem right, say something. A suspicious item or object should be reported with as much detail as you can provide. If you aren't sure of what an object is, describe its characteristics, size, color, and material. Describe why you believe it is suspicious in your report, and provide any other immediate details relevant to the object. Any observed suspicious behavior needs to be avoided, then reported. Do not engage with an individual, and report your concerns from a safe location as soon as you can. Always include the time and location of the behavior. You may want to write down what you saw to ensure details and descriptions of the individual. You can send a text message to Metro Transit Police at MyMTPD. QR codes are located throughout the system on posters, which also allow you to text MTPD directly. Metro has additional patrols throughout the system. If you see something of concern, say something to a uniformed employee. For additional information, see the rider guide at WMATA.com. This concludes our safety contact.
Thank you, Ms. Empasado. And again, welcome to the meeting of the board's executive committee. Since this is our first public meeting of the day, I'll ask our board corporate secretary, Ms. Ellison, to call the roll.
Thank you. Chair Smedberg.
Present.
Vice Chair McAndrew.
Here.
Alternate Director Worth.
Here.
Director Klein. Here. Director Letourneau.
Present.
Director Drummer.
Present.
Director Santos.
Present.
Director Martin Proctor.
Good morning.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. We have agenda before us today for approval. If there are no objections by members of the committee, we'll go ahead and consider the agenda approved as presented. Does anyone have any comments on the agenda as presented? Hearing and seeing none, the agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have minutes from our February 8th meeting and executive sessions of February 8th and February 22nd before us for approval. Are there any comments or objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing and seeing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We have two items on our agenda this morning. The first is to accept a report from the Inspector General and authorize its posting. Next, the committee will receive its first annual report on Metro's progress in implementing its strategic transformation plan, Your Metro, the Way Forward, which was adopted by the board in February 2023. I'll now turn the floor over to our acting Inspector General. Good morning.
Morning. As you mentioned, my name is Kevin Mullendorf, and I've had the privilege for the last 4 months of serving as the acting Inspector General here at WMATA. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, it's my pleasure to present the 33rd semi-annual Inspector General's report to the Board of Directors covering the period from July 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023. The WMATA OIG has approximately 40 full-time employees, including investigators, evaluators, auditors, and support staff, reporting up to our deputy directors for investigations and audit. These dedicated OIG staff members have varied and outstanding experience as former federal and local law enforcement officers, CPAs, and data scientists. During this reporting period, the investigative work by the Office of Investigations generated 4 reports of investigation, 1 management assistance report, and 1 indictment of a WMATA employee responsible for the sale of surplus goods. The Office of Evaluations and Audits focused on WMATA's major operational and financial challenges, including contract audits, 11 contract audits, 3 Buy America audits, 4 audit reports, and 1 evaluation report. During the reporting period, we also developed and launched at the beginning of this year, actually, our Whistleblower Award pilot program. It makes certain whistleblowers eligible for up to a $10,000 reward if their report saves WMATA $1 million or a recovery of $250,000. The goal of the program is to improve the quality of tips that we receive. We think that high-quality reporting of fraud, waste, and mismanagement to the WMATA OIG will help us develop better cases and help WMATA save money. More information on how to submit a tip can be found on our website at www.wamataoig.gov. Similarly, the OIG has turned its attention for 2024 to examining contractors' compliance with their mandatory disclosure obligations and also looking at the WMATA suspension and debarment program, all in an effort to help WMATA continue to be a good steward of public funds. Mr. Chairman, I predict a very active and successful 2024 for the Office of Inspector General, thanks to the hard work and innovation of the OIG staff. Finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the board for the unique opportunity to lead the office in its critical mission for WMATA and the region, and of course to thank the GM and his staff for their cooperation in both our audit and investigative work, as well as the initiatives that we have going forward. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullendorf. Any questions for the Inspector General? Any comments? Well, I would like to say on behalf of the board, I know that we truly appreciate the job you and the team have done over this last 4 months in particular. We've seen a lot of innovation, a lot of leadership, a lot of good management, good judgment coming out of that office. We also very much appreciate the interaction you've had with Randy and his team and the staff. It has made a huge difference in just a relatively short period of time. So I want to express that to you publicly, and I think you and the team have really done an amazing job these last 4 months. So thank you so much.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, on behalf of the staff, Kevin, as the acting OIG, really appreciate the collaboration and transparency. Obviously, there's nothing I care more about than getting ahead of topics and understanding risks. And you've been just a really good, reassuring professional person on that. And really just appreciate the trying to get us information in a way that we can try to manage risks proactively at the organization. So just kudos on behalf of the whole staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Under the board's bylaws, the executive committee is responsible for reviewing and accepting reports of the Inspector General. This committee has reviewed. Oh. Okay, we've already reviewed the report. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. I forgot to turn the page. Acceptance of this report constitutes the board's authorization to post it on the Inspector General's website, provided that the IG has conferred with the General Counsel and confirmed that any private or confidential information has been removed and or redacted in accordance with applicable law and WMATA policy. I would like to move approval of this item. Is there a second from the committee? Seconded by Mr. McAndrew. Now I'll ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew?
Aye.
Ms. Worth?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. This report has been accepted and the Inspector General has been authorized to post it online.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we'll move on to our information item, Annual Transformation Report.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Kimberly Feldbauer. I'm here to present our annual transformation report. I'm our Director of Strategic Transformation, and I'm joined here with my transformation colleagues, Lynn Bowersox, our SVP of Rail Transformation, and Jeff Hyatt, our SVP of Bus Transformation. In summary, today we're excited to celebrate that just a little over a year ago, we adopted our strategic transformation plan, Your Metro, the Way Forward. And while you've been provided a copy of our inaugural annual transformation report, and that will be published later today on our website, we would like to provide a highlight update through this presentation. So over the last year, since adopting the strategic plan, we have been transforming our culture, making progress on the metrics that we identified in the plan, and strategically advancing programs across the organization. The 2024 Annual Transformation Report in front of you provides an update over the last year, progress profiles that are highlighting initiatives and programs that are delivering on our strategic plan, metrics updates, and then an introduction to our action programs preview. As always, everything that we present and work on in our organization is grounded in our transformation report or transformation plan goals and objectives. So we have service excellence, talented teams, regional opportunity and partnership, and sustainability. It was critical for us as an organization to develop a strategic plan that would guide decision-making in the near term, but also foster long-term strategy, as transit in the region is critical to everything that we do, from access to jobs, shopping, healthcare, reducing traffic congestion, and cleaner air as we all work to mitigate climate change. Our regional partners cannot achieve their adopted goals without us. And so, as you remember, a big part of developing the strategic plan was collaborating with our partners across the region to understand the synergies in which we could align our goals with the strategic plan with the metrics to further support achieving all of our regional goals. The framework for the presentation today will go through each goal and highlight some progress profiles. The transformation report is not exhaustive of all of the efforts that the organization is working toward. It's been a very busy year, but we wanted to highlight some in the report, and then here today, the ones that you see with the gold stars are what we're going to highlight today. We'll start with our enterprise video and operations and security system. Historically, cameras and video systems have been installed and procured under several different efforts across the organization. So over the past year, we established an enterprise approach to specifications, installations, and management, and working toward one software platform that will manage the video content and storage. And most importantly, we are transforming our video culture at Metro on how we operationalize video as a tool rather than just a technology to investigate after action. Video is 24/7. We can use it to assess issues on board vehicles without interrupting service, and also use it for track inspections. As we continue to install more cameras, we'll complete installation in fiscal year 25, and that also includes retrofitting some of our 6K and 7K rail fleet to have real-time video access, as well as our bus fleet. We've also created a group for centralized system in our integrated, Metro's integrated command and communication center. So since standing that up, that is the pulse of the organization, and we want to make sure that that team has full operational use of video for their daily operations. And then prior, where I mentioned that multiple departments had different video systems, different equipment, or different specifications, we're centralizing it under one umbrella and are able to see tremendous cost savings. This spring, we're super excited to bring the Fleet of the Future Expo to the National Mall for a sneak peek at our new 8000 series trains and our zero emission buses. Over the past year, we have worked to refine and finalize design decisions, resulting in vehicle materials that have tremendous savings. They've enhanced our customer amenities and an open gangway style to increase customer capacity per car. Our robust engagement with the public and our accessibility and rider committees heavily influenced how we came to these decision points. We've been able to see tremendous rail service improvements due to our ability to hire hundreds of train operators this year. We returned our 7K fleet to service and introduced automatic door operations on the Red Line, where we anticipate system-wide operations later this year. The team is continuing to work with our oversight partners in finalizing the concept of operations for returning to automatic train operations, where these modernizations will allow us to increase safety, reliability, and frequency of our service. Our zero-emission bus transition is well underway, where we received the largest FTA Low-No grant in the country. This $104 million is being spent to retrofit some of our garages, buying new buses, and upskilling our frontline staff and mechanical staff to manage a new modern fleet. The organization is continuing to lean into more transparency and more optimization of how we plan for our infrastructure work to reduce disruptions to the service while improving productivity and cost efficiencies. Working across several departments, acknowledging that this is an industry-wide issue where we leverage the experiences and expertises of our counterparts around the world to get more work done overnight, to increase productivity and utilization of hours where the service is closed, or targeting when and where the least number of customers will be impacted by our shutdowns. We're having more summer and winter work, targeted weekend work, and then also being able to use metrics during these shutdowns to target our year-over-year improvements for our customer experience and workforce enhancements. We came to the board a few months back to present the organization's first ever digital modernization roadmap, which is the linchpin for delivering our strategic transformation plan. Since the hiring of our first ever chief digital officer, we have focused on implementing the roadmap while focusing on the tools and processes needed across departments to most effectively transform how we operate and deliver service. One exciting accomplishment this year is the team who delivered our first ever web-based app to MetroPulse. This serves both of our bus and rail customers for trip planning and system navigation needs with up-to-date information. And since launching in July, we've had over 50,000 views on our website. It has been over a year since we launched our Better Bus program, where we've seen a tremendous amount of success. This has been an incredibly collaborative effort with our partners around the region, and we're seeing massive service improvements through our partnerships on 24/7 bus service in DC, clear lanes, adding dedicated bus lines and other amenities. Our network redesign team revised the Visionary Network with an award-winning customer engagement effort, where we received over 8,000 public comments to develop our year one network. Over 50% of our bus fleet has been retrofitted with new fare boxes, and we've also introduced all-door boarding to several routes on the network. Our newest Metro buses include larger onboard full-color customer information screens with multiple upcoming stops, arrival times for each stops, and other communications and amenities for our customers. So at the end of each section, we'll provide an overview of the metrics. Don't want to be redundant of the regular cadence on the reporting that we come to. We just did the service excellence report, I think 2 weeks ago, but wanted to provide in the report just an overview of where we're seeing progress, where we think we can continue to work towards. But we also hyperlink to the full reports if people want to really get into all the data. So again, this is not an exhaustive list, but for this section, just want to highlight that customer satisfaction continues to increase. We are still at 88% rail customer satisfaction, which is the highest level recorded since we began tracking in 2013. We know that the top drivers of customer satisfaction is our service frequency and personal safety perceptions on our system. So we continue to invest in both delivering excellent service and enhancing security on the system. We did set aggressive targets for 2028, which is our STP target, and we want to highlight that we are meeting or beating those targets in several areas. So crime rate, elevator and escalator availability, and our Metro Rail on-time performance. So since this time last year, we have added a lot of frequency. So now that we have most of our 7K fleet back, we want to continue to focus on reliability for our customers. Moving on to talented teams, this goal, as a reminder, was to attract, develop, and retain top talent where individuals feel valued, supported, and proud of their contributions. One of the ways we are fostering a culture of transparency and continuous improvement in our organization is through our maintenance reporting channel on Teams. This is an internal channel that's used by over 600 staff across all departments, all levels of management and staff. And so when we're out on the system, which is a lot, we can be additional eyes on the functionality, the maintenance, which empowers all staff to have a sense of ownership in the system and not just relying on our frontline staff to manage the care of our system. We can identify anything from broken glass or an escalator out of service, first communicate with station manager or other frontline colleagues that are out on the station or on the bus to see if they've already reported it. If not, they can snap a picture, provide as much detail as possible, and submit it through the Teams channel. The Teams channel is monitored 24/7 by our control center, and they immediately implement or open up a work order to get things fixed. And then they also close the loop on the communication by reporting back into the Teams channel to let you know the status. In the last 90 days, we've had almost 500 issues reported. A few months, I think in November, we came and presented on the transformational sprints and the sprint culture that the organization has adopted over the last year. But just wanted to highlight some process efficiencies that are driving cost savings and improving employee satisfaction. So since we reported to you last, we're continuing to implement some of the solutions identified in the various sprints. And we're seeing improvements across all 3 departments, both for the department stakeholders, but also the cross-department internal customers. So we've established dashboards and metrics to track our progress in all 3 areas. Our human capital team has worked to make hiring efforts 10 days faster, and our digital modernization roadmap is guiding technological transformation across the organization. While we do have work to do across our metrics and talented teams, we mostly are trending in the right direction, which is good news, and we're not seeing as much progress is where we are able to target our transformational initiatives. The metric I do want to bring attention to, and this one, is our Net Promoter Scale, since this is something new we are tracking at Metro, and it is based on an industry standard. A Net Promoter Score is a scale of -100 to 100, and it is based on the answer to the question of, on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you prefer, or how would you recommend Metro as a place to work? So if you answer 9 or 10, you're a promoter. If you answer 7 or 8, you are neutral. And if you answer 0 to 6, you are a detractor. The score is the difference between the percent who are promoters and then those who are detractors. A score of 100 means that everyone says that they would recommend Metro to work. A score of -100 means that everyone said they would not recommend Metro as a place to work. So we have a fairly sizable neutral population at Metro. About 29% of our staff answer 7 or 8. And so we have about 36% that are promoters, 35% detractors. So our opportunity with this metric is to turn more of the neutral population into promoters. And across multiple organizations, when we benchmarked ourselves, the average is about 14. And so that's what we've identified in the strategic plan as our target. So moving on to regional opportunity and partnership. Again, this is designing transit service to move more people and equitably connect a growing region. Wanted to highlight our efforts over the last year of how we are partnering with local law enforcement to enhance overall safety on our system and the perception of safety amongst customers and employees. We have established 5 memorandums of understanding. We have about 20 stations, Metro stations covered for more than half of the day, and over 100 special police officers on the system each day. And these special police officers are, on the platforms. They're riding trains, they're on buses, and interacting with customers. We're making great progress on retrofitting our Fairgate infrastructure and have completed 23 stations as of this week, and we have a few more that are being complete quite soon. We also are utilizing our video assets to collaborate with our jurisdictional law enforcement partners. In 2023, we responded to over 2,000 video requests from our systems to support investigations in other jurisdictions. Partnering for bus improvement. So this is where, an incredible amount of coordination goes on with DDOT, the DMV, our automated enforcement of bus lanes and bus stops. We've seen a tremendous amount of progress in this area. We have over 50,000 bus stop zone violation tickets, over 10,000 illegal bus lane driving parking warnings. So if anything, it's bringing awareness to one that we're enforcing and really kind of driving hard that we care about the service for our bus customers and that we are committed to making it better. Metro has an incredible real estate team. We have one of the most aggressive real estate programs in any transit agency in the country. Our partnerships with Amazon have created over 1,000 affordable units. In Prince George's County, we are coordinating on implementation of a RAISE grant to include the creation of a new train hall and plaza. In Montgomery County, we also coordinated on a RAISE grant application to support their BRT terminal. And over the last year, we've had several groundbreakings, including the iconic JGB redevelopment. So when developing the metrics for our regional opportunity and partnership goal, we were a bit strategic to really push ourselves to provide the highest set based on service levels budgeted for fiscal year 24. So we know that if we have to cut service in fiscal year 25, these values will significantly go down. While we just missed our target for rail frequent service, you can see that we made incredible progress on delivery, which is 4 times the improvement of where we were this time last year. All right, and moving on to our final section, sustainability. Get my pages. Thinking about capital program and how they interrelate with project costs, this is where we're really shifting the culture around implementation of our capital projects and programs. We were able to identify over $25 million in fiscal year 25, which will amount to $150 million over the 6-year CIP. This includes overhead costs that will not impact project or program delivery, but were really a result of carefully reviewing scopes. So we could focus on the different needs, a lot of interdepartmental coordination to making sure that we're not being redundant in our efforts, identifying necessary scopes, benchmarking to best practices with our peers, but also other organizations outside of the transit industry to see how they scope, how they run their programs. The bus shelter replacement program is a really great example. We did a comprehensive internal and external review process where we were able to update and tailor the scope to reflect industry standards, streamlined our customer communication approach, met federal requirements for accessibility upgrades, and saw nearly a 70% reduction in cost from what we were doing before. So that went from about $400,000 per shelter to $125,000 per shelter. In fiscal year 23, we made significant strides towards our sustainable operations objectives, advancing key initiatives such as solar carports, which is a 25-year partnership with private entities to install solar paneled carports at 4 stations. In 2023, we turned on 2 of them. This is over 11 acres of solar panels that will generate enough electricity to power 1,100 homes. This also has improved our customer experience. We're protected from the elements, enhancing safety with better lighting, security cameras, and emergency call boxes. And also supports our financial sustainability because we receive annual lease payments from these carports. The lighting program, we replaced administrative and maintenance facilities over 100,000 old light bulbs. This was an award-winning program from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And this also resulted in us saving over $1.6 million annually, plus a one-time utility rebate of $1 million. So as we get to the metrics overview for sustainability, the overall takeaway from our sustainability metrics are, we're generally trending in the right direction. Some of the financial metrics have not moved significantly from the baseline, and that is due to the aggressive targets we set so we could achieve a sustainable and long-term funding strategy. Our environmental targets are mostly long-term with a long lead time. For example, our transition of zero-emission fleet, that doesn't happen in 1 year. So expected that we wouldn't have significant movement, but over the next couple of years, we anticipate seeing those significant changes. So moving on, the strategic transformation plan to continue activating in this year 2 of the strategic plan, we have developed action programs. So we're building these programs to activate our strategic plan for the organization. Due to the size and structure of the organization, having buckets to organize initiatives, milestones, support staff across the entire organization to understand how their role contributes to the implementation and delivery of our strategic plan. This is connected to our operating planning, our fleet planning, capital planning. All of it is just, it's linked and it's connected. And so we really want to reinforce the activation part with achieving the goals. And so that regardless of someone's role, whether they're frontline staff, an analyst, whether they're an operator, they understand how they deliver on our strategic plan. So for a good example is in the next few months, we're making sure that every division, whether it's bus or rail, administrative facility, will have the action plan, but they also will see physically on screens how the metrics are impacting their specific division, but also general corporate-wide content. And then by digitizing our organization, we will have better document control, which also will help reduce risks and address many of the corrective action programs that we're working towards. So the next few slides, we will go through just introducing an illustrative example of how we are developing the action plans and more detail on the scope, schedule, and anticipated milestones. These are not exhaustive. We are developing what will end up being an appendix to the strategic transformation plan with a more robust detail of scope and schedule and milestones. But all of these initiatives are cross-departmental and multi-year in nature. So the Enterprise Action Program, we are broken those up into two. So Enterprise is everything that is across the organization that does not fall into the rail operations or bus and access operations. And so digital modernization, safety and security systems, modernizing our customer experience, these impact all of our modes, all of our internal customers and external customers, but how we're bucketing them and strategically driving them as programmatic efforts rather than individual projects. So it will take a few years to get the entire program done, but want everyone to understand that, for instance, the fair strategy and fair gates and boxes, like while we are slowly implementing or may feel like we're slowly implementing those, we're already seeing transformational efforts and how those continue to transpire. So our Enterprise Administration Action Program is anchored in an engaged and skilled workforce. So we're focusing on our agency's first ever DEI strategy as an example. And then also making sure that we are efficient and well partnered. So we've launched our Enterprise Resource Planning System, ERP, which I think we've come a couple times to give you an update on. And the implementation of that system over the next few years will be significantly transformational to the organization.
All right. So on the good morning, Chair, Board, and General Manager Clark. Our Bus and Access Action Program, as you can see, as Kimmy mentioned, is not comprehensive of all of the efforts and the different projects and initiatives going on within Bus. And you're very happy to know that there's a lot of projects that we are working on to improve bus service generally, and just everything underneath that big old bucket. The three items on the blue line, the Better Bus Program, Zero Emission Transition, Digital Modernization, all are kind of the overall umbrellas that represent a lot of different initiatives and projects underneath them. And you can see through the timeline, some of these have short end dates, and then you'll see several that extend beyond our 10 years. And so what that means is that we have to develop a way for us to be able to manage programs and projects now and start building ourselves up as we continue to improve and be able to access better technology in all of these different areas. And this represents, every one of these projects represents collaboration among many different departments. None of these projects are siloed within one particular group or area. And I think that's what is so indicative of how well Metro is doing and delivering a lot of these programs is the collaboration effort that all stakeholders involved are keenly aware of what's going on. They understand how their different pieces of this impact the other. And so we want to make sure that we establish these building blocks so we continue to transform. And you can see on our Better Bus Program, something like clear lanes and our active bus management, transit signal priority. Those are individual projects, but they all tie into each other. And so we have those projects feed into how well we do something else. Our zero emission transition is encompassing a lot of areas, from building our new garages to getting these buses in service and working with safety. And so there's a lot of areas and a lot of different pieces and different milestones within those areas as well. And of course, digital modernization. Our good friend and colleague Judd has got a lot under his umbrella, making sure that our technology is really improving and that we have access to the best technology. You saw a great report from Christian Blake and Access a couple weeks ago, talk about how some of these new technologies have really informed and improved some of their service, and we can utilize the technology that they've been able to pilot and carry that over into our other modes as well. So it's there's a lot going on, and this is, again, as Kimmy mentioned, it's just a snapshot. and we look forward to continuing to be able to show the progress in these areas.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning for everybody listening. My name is Lynn Bowersox. I'm the Senior Vice President of Rail Transformation, and I'm just going to cover the Rail Action Program slide very briefly this morning because the board has had regular updates on most of the individual actions that are part of the Rail Action Program. So I just want to tie some of these together, both in terms of looking back over the last year and looking ahead. So on the look back, many of the board members have been to the new Metro Control Center. And we think about that Metro Control Center as if it's been always here, but it hasn't. It was just stood up in the last year. It is an industry best practice center filled with new technology that makes us safer and more reliable. One of the things that the MIC does is looks at video in real time that's coming from the thousands of cameras that we now have throughout the system. And so when you see the fleet of the future listed on this program, and Kimmy talked about the digitization of the 6000 series rail cars, there will come a day when 6, 7s, and 8s make up our entire fleet, because we'll have enough of the 8000 series cars to retire the oldest rail cars in our fleet, the 2s and the 3s. So when the 6, 7s, and 8s are all in place, and that makes up all of our passenger service, we will have video in all 3 of those types of rail cars that's feeding into the MIC and making that tool available in real time for the people who are managing the system. Again, that's very important, but that's why you see the multiple time horizons on this, right? Because by the time we get all of the 8000s in, we'll have that fleet of the future that we imagine. The next item on that same, under that same program is the 8000 series rail car. And the general manager will have more to say about this morning, but we're about to reach a very important milestone with respect to public participation in the 8000 series design program, and we're very excited about that. Looking back under advanced maintenance program, the board will recall that when the 7000 series trains, when it became the subject of an investigation for the wheel sets, and before we knew the cause of the wheel set issue that we had, we ordered automatic wayside inspection systems. These were a technology that were used by freight railroads, not commonly used by transit. We installed them, and you haven't probably heard about them too much more since. Well, those AWIS systems, there's 4 of them installed in our system, and they are measuring train data as wheels pass over them and are used by our railcar maintenance folks as supplemental data. And again, as we try to be a more data-centered organization, this is very helpful to have in addition to the manual inspections that we do routinely now in the 7000 series trains. So again, looking back, but also that continues to be a part of our program. And finally, under rail automation. So the items listed here combined are the path to autonomous trains, which we one day hope to achieve. And the next step on that path is getting to automatic door operations on other lines. We activated that on the red line in December. We've had countless door openings safely with no safety issues since then. And we've been working side by side with the Metro Rail Safety Commission since then to get to the next step, which is to automatically open doors throughout the rail system. That work has been going on every single day since we started on the red line. And all of our train operators have been trained and are ready to go into certification mode. So with the WMSC's concurrence, which we anticipate any day, we will be operationally ready to certify our rail operators and start operating automatic doors throughout the system. Again, a very important step forward for the rail automation program, which ultimately makes the system safer and more reliable. I'll turn it back to Kimmy and then be ready to take your questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are almost wrapped up here in the vein of transparency and reflection on the last year since adopting the strategic plan. We also included in our transformation report we're, looking back and seeing where we may have needed to refine some methodology of the metrics, or perhaps that we didn't set aggressive enough targets for ourselves, or identify new measures that we think we should be tracking as part of the strategic plan. We've identified changes to some of those metrics that will be included in an update to the Appendix A of the strategic transformation plan. So I won't go into them in detail, but really it's just the four main categories of change. Again, or refining the methodology. We corrected the baseline or updated the target, just refined the description, or it's a completely new measure. So with that, thank you for your support over the last year and the implementation of our first strategic transformation plan, and really look forward to any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Feldbauer, for that comprehensive update. Any questions from committee members? Comments? Mr. McAndrew.
Impressive. For year one, I'll just like at a top line, the continued focus on the bus and improving the bus and ultimately implementing a heroic lift of, a better bus network is really important. That's coming up, I believe, this next year. And so getting that right is going to be very important as we look out to year two. If we can go to slide, I don't know which one, 25 of 50 or 13, depending on what number you want to use.
What's the content?
Service excellence metrics overview. So I'm trying to grapple with, and I'll say, as an anecdote, I ride the rail pretty regularly, and I've started to observe that there are more folks in yellow shirts out there as ambassadors, and there are more folks on the rail lines and on the platforms that are security that are out there moving around. I feel very safe. My perception would not lead me to believe that it's 58% of the folks should feel unsafe. And so I'm trying to figure out how we can have customer satisfaction at 88% and then the safety at 56%. And maybe it's because we're running the best service we've ever had before, and it's on time, and our wheels are doing well. But I just love to kind of get a sense of why, even it's nominal, it's 2%, but why aren't we making moves there in your opinion, or what are steps that are going to be taken to improve?
What was the last part you said? What are before?
Steps that we're continuing to take to improve upon it. Because I think, it's great to see 88% as a top line. And maybe that's the ultimate matter or number that matters here. But I think, safety and security is important as well.
Thank you for the question, board member. It's clear that what drives customer satisfaction here, especially on the rail side, is service frequency and reliability. That is, first and foremost, the key driver of satisfaction. The perception around customer safety, public safety, is a lagging matter for customer satisfaction, but it is an increasingly important one as that perception changes. And so, to the point that Kimmy made, highlighting the regional partnerships with law enforcement, the intervention specialists that we've had out on the system, the enhancement of onboard patrols with both our own MTPD, with special police officers, and with regional law enforcement, not just in our stations, but on board our trains and on board our buses. All of those things are being done with a very specific intention of enhancing actual customer perception of public safety and preventing crime where we can.
Board member, I just add in my thought at the end there was just, I actually, I'm cautiously optimistic we're going to move that number better, especially with the enhanced patrols we have in the system, and I'm glad that you're seeing more of them. I think the recent action in DC related to the Secure DC bill will further, I think, help that a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit in my GM report. And then I think we just got to be probably eyes wide open that there's going to be a perception level in America that we're not going to cross. And it's because most people live and die by this, and they're based on algorithms that feed you negative stuff all day long. So if you watch local news, the first A and B block now is basically murders, fires, bad weather, murder, fire, bad weather, and cycle, and basically this as well. So I think, I do believe we'll move that number higher, but there's probably a cap on that number that is going to be always lower than customer satisfaction overall because of the world that we're just bombarded with negative news cycle. I took like almost 700 trips last year, I think it was, and I probably had like a few bad trips. So the statistical chance of having a security incident on a train is incredibly low, but obviously the perception that America has all these issues is much higher, so.
Okay, Mr. McAndrew. Mr. Letourneau, then Ms.
Yeah, so you referenced the Fairgate project, which we're really appreciative of. We don't put fare evasion metrics in this report. I know we have them elsewhere. Or at least in the presentation, they are kind of buried down somewhere, right? Is it just too early to kind of be able to be measuring? I know we have on rail, we've been seeing some results where we have there they are. We've been seeing some results there, but we didn't have the baseline. So, but do you have anything more quantitative on just, I've heard bits and pieces at this station and that station, it's down by X, it's down by Y. We've been kind of saying that, but do we have anything kind of more?
Yeah, so I think that's something we're thinking about back to how we establish baselines as STP. So there are a ton of metrics that we measure as an organization, whether it's in reference to FTA requirements or for several other reasons. And so while we didn't necessarily include the baseline of the before and after in the STP of fare evasion where we're retrofitting the infrastructure, that is absolutely something Supervisor Letourneau, that we can add to the STP and start tracking.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm hopeful that we're going to continue to see progress here now that we're rolling it out. And I think it would be helpful to show that. And then on the bus side, I know we're doing, I think we're doing spot checks and patrols and things like that. I don't know if we're starting to move the needle there, but same thing, just to help kind of combat that perception. So if that is something we can kind of be tracking better, that'd be great.
Yeah, board member, I think by the end of this month, we'll probably have a little bit more certainty on a few things. So part of the gates is every place we add gates, it impacts the origin destination of trip patterns. So I think cumulatively, we're starting to actually, Tom and I talk about this almost on a daily basis. In the last 2 weeks to 3 weeks, we've really started to see fare evasion kind of crest downward at a nice level. So I wouldn't be surprised by within the month, we might have a 50% reduction in actual overall rail fare evasion. But we want to give a few more weeks here, and then we're going to get something out to you all and then publicly on that. But we are really starting to see a noticeable decrease between enforcement and fare gates.
Okay. Ms. Santos, then Ms. Klon.
Yes, so actually a follow-up, and then I had a completely separate question, which is an observation about all-door boarding, which seems like a great idea. How does that intersect with fare evasion? Because my impression was that the fare evasion issue is much more significant on buses than rail. So could you just comment more on that? And then I had a completely separate question.
I can take that, Director Santos. Fare evasion is something that we are tracking with all-door boarding as well. I think as we've started that and rolled that out on the 9 routes that have started that, we haven't seen any increase in fare evasion for those routes. Fare evasion remains a concern, obviously, as we're talking about it, but we will continue to track that as part of the metrics to see how all-door boarding is working in the system. All-door boarding, just in general, we have seen some improvements in time and boarding times. So we recognize the service improvements, but we obviously want to make sure we track that as well. So that's one of the metrics that we're following.
And to be clear, I think all-door boarding is wonderful. I just think that the perception, there's, as you well know, there is significant concern about fare evasion, and therefore it's natural to say, well, wait a minute, if it's already a problem, how is this going to streamline? But thank you. And then also follow up on Board Member McAndrew's comment earlier. I know the same slide, I noticed the assault rate. And again, this is more just a question. It said that it's 9%, which seemed awfully high to me. Could you just add some context on how to understand that figure? And it seems like the number has gone, it's higher than the target number.
Right. So again, we worked, thank you for that question. And when we worked towards identifying what a target was, or it's not necessarily something that we want, like we want zero, but working with our partners in MTPTD to understand what is a reasonable target to work toward. So yeah, so like 8.3 based on the number of assaults that we've had over the last couple of years is how we identified that number as a target. And then 9.4 unfortunately is where we are. So we are increasing.
Okay. And then, sorry, hogging the mic, but my original question, so I looked, I was quite curious to hear more about your metrics related to joint development and streamlining related to capital projects. With respect to joint development, what metrics, what's your baseline for timeframe? So in terms of partnering with the private sector or with the jurisdictions, timing and the time between project conceptualization and start of construction, timing between concept and finalizing negotiation is critical. And how, if at all, is timing tracked and what can be done to improve it? Because my understanding is that that may be a factor in terms of how there could be improvements in this space.
So, Board Member, why don't I take that one? So I would say this is more qualitative than quantitative, obviously. And as you know from your background, the idea of putting a date on a transaction is very challenging. So we have a very challenging market out there right now, obviously, especially office. Capital costs are very high, interest costs very high. With that said, we are still working actively with our partners. There's a few things coming up at the next board meeting, actually, that we're bringing you all on. I think it's 3 or 4 different development opportunities that we, especially partnerships with local government, because they actually have some money to activate things, whether it's libraries or concert halls and other things of that nature. I mean, I've heard that before from other developers. I will say, we're always willing to look at our process if there's things that are kind of project specific. And so I would encourage you or others, if there's project specific things that says, hey, this thing went this long, could we do something else? Happy to look at that. I will say it takes multiple partners to dance sometimes. And all partners need to be aligned on the same timetable. And so we're just all open to be partners here. And if there's things that we can do better, I made that crystal clear to all of our local partners. I had a form in here we probably had all the local developers that we do work with, plus all the consultants and real estate teams that do that. And we made that crystal clear to everyone. So, there's an openness here to improve process if it's truly us in the process. I think our goal is to do 2 development deals a year, is the way we laid it out in the strategic real estate plan, which would be a very, obviously, high number for a transit agency to pull off, especially in this market.
Thanks, General Manager. I think actually I do appreciate the flexibility of looking on a project by project basis, and I think that's important. And I also think it's important to have certain frameworks or goals. So in the same way, there's other things that are setting a reasonable target that would be, again, like from timing from concept to, setting certain interim targets. As opposed to doing it on a project by project. It just keeps everybody focused. The other thing I would observe is that it would be helpful, obviously may not be appropriate to do it now, but thinking about what are the metrics that we as Metro use to measure ourselves, in the sense is the overall goal to maximize the financial value, maximize the number of affordable housing units, all of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. So before you joined the board, we actually had pretty significant discussion around this topic area. So maybe we'll try to get some time with the team with you on this topic and go through the previous elements. So, and board gave pretty clear direction to staff, which is let's activate these spaces. So I think historically there was a big focus on kind of monetization of an asset. I think the general philosophy here at Metro now is activation of asset. We're not a real estate developer. And we want to continue to break any understanding of that, both internally and externally, that our job is not to do development. Our job is to help facilitate development with our partners. And so Board Member Gander and I have talked a fair amount about this as well, because there's a lot of things on the blue line, as an example, we want to activate. We're working very closely on the DC side with some library projects and whatnot. So, so it's really hard for us to say, what the affordable housing goals should be, because at the end of the day, we don't control planning and zoning. So I think what we would like to see is more philosophical. We want to see as most activity around the station as possible. That is housing, mixed-use housing, mixed activity, the least amount of parking possible, the most amount of height and density possible. And for us, it's how we are re-engineering our thought process around parking and transit infrastructure to reduce costs so our partner can then pencil out a project. And so that's what we are doing philosophically with all of our partners. And then, it's just a challenge right now because on the public side, every one of our partners is under financial strain. And on the private side, it's just not worth putting capital to play right now. So I'm with you. And if we can, maybe we'll have deeper conversations with you about that. If there's ways we can better quantify that, we certainly want to do that. We want to do everything we can to get these spaces moved along.
Ms. Klein, then Ms. Martin Proctor, and then Ms. Worth.
Thank you. There is a lot in here, and I'm going to ask a really basic question, which may be because I was reading this too late at night and I haven't finished my caffeine yet this morning, but is the STP baseline the same as the targets, or are those two different things?
They're two different things. So
Okay.
the baseline, and great question. I think we have realized, or we have some work to do around this, is being clearer about how we're measuring what the change is. So the STP baseline is, so when we developed the STP last year and identified these KPIs, is that that's what the baseline that we're measuring from. And so then we have, some metrics are measured quarterly, some are measured annually, some are measured several times throughout the year. And then we've also identified targets that are for each year or quarterly, but we also have targets for 2028, which was the kind of the long range cap of this plan.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot of things going on here, targets and baselines and checks and little dots with color. And it was a little bit hard to follow, which I think you recognize, which is great. But so are the targets public somewhere?
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
On the dashboard.
They're in the back of the strategic transformation
All
plan.
of them are there.
Yep.
It's now posted online.
It's now posted.
also
Great.
For people, and
Okay.
in addition to the printed version, thanks to Kimmy's leadership on this.
Great. Okay. So a question, I have two questions that dive into the data, which is, you guys may not be the right folks to answer it because I recognize you don't know the details of every single one of these.
Try my best.
At least I
think Jordan's here
I would
to be
amazed if you did.
my quarterback.
On this particular slide, I was interested in the inclusive contracting. If we're starting from a baseline of 33%, and I guess I could look and see what the target is, but I noted that we're at a lower percentage, but it says we've met our target, which just surprised me. Why would our target be lower than the baseline in the inclusive contracting space?
I do not have that answer for you right in this moment, but I will take that down and get that
That's
answer
fine.
for you.
And similarly, it was on a different slide, but I don't know that you need to move to it. On the bus real-time availability, but accuracy of the bus real-time information, which I'm really glad we're looking at, was 86.3% in the baseline, or 86.6, something like that. I recall a presentation maybe within the last year that we were working on upgrading the software for the real-time information, and I guess I was expecting more of an uptick in sort of the accuracy of that information, but I don't know if the timing aligns. Has that been completed? Is it launched? Can we expect a jump in the accuracy of bus real-time information?
It's a great question, Board Member Klein. Yes, we are. So we did just a new contract was awarded to Cambridge Systematics, which does a lot of that polling, and we are not only working to increase the accuracy, but part of that is there's some other initiatives that we have to do as well, and that's getting better polling rates from our buses so that we get the information quicker. So right now we're at 30 seconds, and we want to get that down to 5 seconds. That allows us to give more accurate real-time information. So there's kind of multiple things that are kind of leading to that, and we're working on all of those simultaneously that will get to that prediction model that is ensuring that our riders have the best information, especially on our overnight buses, which is even the most critical, I think. So we have staff that have been looking and doing a lot of QA/QC to make sure that at least where we are now is as accurate as possible, and we continue to utilize these technologies and these other processes to improve that.
Is that a process that's sort of incremental, or is it something that you're going to sort of relaunch at some point and the whole new package gets up and running?
It's kind of incremental because there's some pieces that will all have to fall into place to get there, because it's not just one switch that will flip. It's kind of multiple things that will tie together.
Okay, well, I think this, I mean, among the things that are important to riders, I know this is a really, really important one, particularly overnight if you're waiting, outside. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Understand, Ms. Martin Proctor, you're okay. You don't need, okay, offline. All right, Ms. Worth.
Great job, Kimmy, on the strategic transformation plan. You've really brought the plan to life. It hasn't been a plan that's sat on the shelf, which is like a planner's worst fear. But nearly all of the plans and or projects and programs in Metro over the past year have been connected, if not all of them, to the strategic transformation plan. So great job with making that happen and leading that effort. I just have a few questions. So as a frequent daily bus and rail user, I have like some apps, but I also have bookmarked on my phone the bus ETA. And I know that Metro Pulse has existed since last summer, but does bus ETA feed into Metro Pulse? Should riders also be looking at both? Should I have both bookmarked and, checking them out to see when the bus is coming?
Well, first of all, thank you, Board Member Worth, for the kind comments. It's a massive team effort, and that I feel privileged to get to work with. To your question, I look at both because I'm just curious, but Metro Pulse, the intent of Metro Pulse is to replace that. So it's the same feed that produces the data that we get for Metro Pulse bus is what is from bus ETA.
Okay.
Are you noticing discrepancies, or is just curious if it's redundant?
Was just when I was looking through the slides, I'm like, oh, should I also have Metro Pulse too? Okay.
Yeah, I think, it's not everyone is super comfortable. People have been using bus ETA for years. And so I think transitioning is not comfortable for some people, but the intent is that, one day we'll eventually have that as a fully loaded app, because right now it is web-based.
Great. And then I was just curious about the all-door boarding and the number of lines. I've heard between 7 and 9, and on the website it says 7 lines, and I was just wondering if there's another one in the district.
Thank you for that question, Director Worth. I may be mistaken. We keep going through some lines, so if it's I thought it was 9. I will clarify that, but I believe we will make sure to get that number right. That we have right now. We will be rolling out more, and what is getting us to that point is just making sure that we have all of the targets installed on the bus and getting everything ready to go. So we will have more coming out in the next couple months, probably a larger rollout that will really encompass a majority of our system.
Great. Thanks. And then my last question, I guess on slide 29, so just 2 more slides, you have all of or maybe it wasn't slide 29.
What was
the one where you have the legend and the lines with the milestones, the lines, milestones, and then an arrow, I guess.
Action plans.
Yeah. My question was and this is just, when there's an arrow, does that mean that the project continues, or when there's a milestone, you're done, completed? Or does the arrow mean that it's continuously going? It's just a basic sort of question.
Yes, great question, and thanks for that feedback. I think we're continuing to refine how we present these. A lot of our efforts and projects initiatives, they're not, scope, scheduled, done in 2 years. So they may have specific milestones that happen in year 1 or year 2, but there will be an evolution of a program. So some of them that we have up here, so back-end system technology, yes, that will take us, it's not going to take 10 years until we see any results, but will be quite a while to fully implement, where we will see some initial milestones in year 1, year 5, probably year 7. But that's basically the gist of how we've tried to illustratively show these efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Santos, then Mr. Drummond.
Thanks, Chair. If you could go back to the slides about the capital program, just some clarification questions. So this one, I am trying to understand, it sounds like one of the, I don't know if this is the right slide, but it's fine. One of the adjustments is pulling services in-house and having staff rather than professional services. My understanding, however, is the capital program is getting rationalized in our budget environment. I'm curious to understand what is just share more context on this question of using in-house staff versus professional services when balancing between flexibility and cost.
Yeah, Barman, why don't I take that one? So there's some scenarios here at Metro where we've had, I will say, more costly consultants on board for year after year after year after year. Where we want to do is find out when we need a consultant that is very specialized on something we can't do cheaper in-house and things that will last a long time. So we have parts of our capital program that never end. Power tracks, signals, facility, stuff that just is never ending because of the type of organization we are. And then we have very technical things, say an ERP program that will have an end date. And so we are trying to do more, if you will, pure transit stuff in-house, so it'll be less money, and then more specialized things very specific to consultants. And that's how to try to balance that out. So yeah, it's kind of hard with these metrics, because over here someone will say, hey, Metro, you're adding headcount. And then over here, someone will say, why are you not driving the budget down? And so we could drive budget down by doing headcount. We got to be, so they kind of play off each other a little bit. So that we're just trying to maximize the whole piece. So a good example on the 25 million, we figured out ways, and I give a lot of credit to Tom and Andy's team specifically. They worked through ideas about how we could reduce overhead costs, so administration and, if you will, soft costs on projects, to not impact scope of the projects by 25 million a year, which means that'll put 150 million back into the capital program. The bottom part of this slide is then starting to look at actual scope and how do we get our scope more in line with industry best practice to then save more money for the program so we can do more. So they kind of play together. Hopefully that's helpful.
That is helpful. And I do think reducing customization and streamlining workflow and the number of approvals and the standards will help. I think that, yeah, I'm guessing this is something that's going to need to be iterated because I think that, because I've heard anecdotally about the timing to get certain projects done. And as you know, the longer things take and the number of approvals adds to cost. So I look forward to just learning more and hearing more about it.
Mr. Drummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a reflective comment and extend a note of thanks. So I began with the fact that this is a huge organization, 14,000 plus employees, billions of dollars of assets and infrastructure, tremendously talented team members, and a center of gravity in the National Capital Region. So it started with a vision, and I recall vividly being a part of that process where we talked about the strategic transformation plan and how you got input in every angle, every person you could find to contribute to that process. And I've spent, quite a few years as a professional in the transformation business. And this is one of the best I've seen so far, and we're just 18 months into it. So I want to thank you for that. As I was listening to this presentation, I wrote down notes, themes that just jumped off the page for me. One was the vision. Thank you, Randy, for coming in with the vision and the drive that sometimes drives some of us crazy because it's so much, so fast, but it's very good and it's been good for this organization. Second is clarity and expectations and intended outcomes. That's critical because you can't get everything done, but we knew what the priorities are. We know what they are, and we'll continue to push those forward. The third is excellence in planning, programming, and resourcing what needs to be done. with all of those moving parts and all of the priorities that we have to include safety, which we're heavily engaged in. And I just want to say thank you for the work you're doing. Kimmy, you said it's a team effort. You have a lot of input from a lot of angles. You have, as Randy would say when he first got here, a North Star. We know what we're shooting for. Continue to do this. And this is another model for others to emulate in the industry. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer.
Thank you, Board Member Drummer.
Thank you, Kimmy. I think we can all add our words to Don's there, but also I do want to emphasize, Kimmy, you weren't on the pre-brief because you were on vacation, but I too had sort of similar comments on that call as to Sarah's comments about the grid and all the little checks and everything. So I just wanted to, emphasize that. It seemed, and I know it's a work in progress, but just wanted to, let you know that.
All right. Yes, thank you, Chair, for that feedback. It has been well received, and we're working across multiple different perspectives to see how we can articulate what we're trying to convey, so that's digestible for not just people that work in.
And that's the key point. I mean, that is not a criticism. It's to just think about the more important audience. It's not necessarily us. It's the outside folks.
Absolutely.
And our jurisdictional partners and customers and others. So that it's set in that spirit, not as a criticism necessarily.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All right. With no further business to come before the committee, we'll stand adjourned. Turn the floor over to Mr. Drummer to begin today's Safety and Operations Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Smedberg. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the board's Safety and Operations Committee. As usual, our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to note that the general manager has asked that we add an update on the work being done in response to the Eastern Market incident on February 15th. For committee members, are there any objections to the agenda as amended? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. And I will point out that Ms. Klein will be recusing herself from the discussion on this new item. Now to approval of the minutes of our February 22nd meeting. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as well. We have two items on today's agenda. The first is an update on the incident management framework and on the Office of Emergency Preparedness as a function of Metro's Department of Safety and Readiness. This will be followed by an update on the Eastern Market incident and ongoing investigation. I'll now turn the floor over to Ms. Impastato and her team to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Metro team last briefed the board with regard to our emergency preparedness efforts in October of 2021. And since that time, we've come quite a long way. We've made significant investment in maturing our programs. And we are joined here today by the Senior Vice President of the Metro Integrated Command and Communications Center, Mr. Roy Aguilera, who manages and oversees the agency's unified response to any unusual occurrences that occur throughout the system, as well as Ms. Nakia Bradley, the Senior Director of Emergency Preparedness within the Safety and Readiness team, who manages the portfolio of preparedness programs throughout Metro. Mr. Dwyer and I are proud to continue to collaborate across the agency in order to assure an informed and proactive response to any emergency incidents. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to the team to brief you on the milestones that we've achieved as well as the actions that we have upcoming.
Thank you, Teresa. Good morning, Chairman Drummer. How we prevent, mitigate, and manage emergencies at Metro is in large part equipping how our employees from across multiple operational departments and those from jurisdictional fire and police departments to be competent, confident in how we prepare and respond. It's all about investing in talented teams. I'm Nakia Bradley, the Senior Director of Emergency Preparedness, and as our esteemed Chief Safety Officer mentioned, we also have our Senior Vice President of the Metro's Integrated Command and Communication Center, Roy Aguilera, to discuss this with you today. So I want to start first by talking about strategically improving our risk management. Overall, the message today is that collaboration is better than ever between our operations, infrastructure, and safety departments to systematically improve the identification and mitigation of safety hazards before, during, and after our emergencies. How we prepare for and manage incidents is a priority initiative, not only for the strategic transformation plan, but also the agency's strategy to change its safety culture, namely the safety management system. Incident management is contained in our safety management roadmap, which is here on the screen, which has been presented in previous board meetings. But I want to outline in detail in the board-approved agent safety plan. The safety management system will ensure all employees know how to report safety hazards, are aware of what hazards may affect them, and know what the agency is doing to mitigate them. As we make progress with our emergency preparedness, Metro has now reached a point of maturity where we have recently initiated accreditation under the Emergency Management Accreditation Program. It involves a rigorous assessment and third-party validation of our emergency management best practices. We hope to receive this accreditation within the next 2 years. By achieving this accreditation, we'll formally demonstrate and acknowledge our maturity and improvement in this area. Preparing for emergencies and responding to incidents is something that's owned, delivered, and overseen by multiple teams across Metro, from frontline transportation staff and rail, bus, and Metro Access to our Metro Transit Police, track repair crews, and rail bus supervisors, plus primary responders and the safety team. It's all about internal coordination. Metro is making the strides to improve performance across all parts of the emergency management lifecycle. That's prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Now we will dive into the details on different functions across the agency. I'm going to hand it over to Roy to talk about this in his area of responsibility.
Thank you, Nakia. At the heart of Metro's growing ability to respond effectively and consistently to emergencies is the new Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center, opened in 2023. It leads the industry and has pulled all core operational command and communication functions into one place, namely rail, bus, communications, maintenance, power, video and monitoring, production, and emergency planning and exercising. The room is led by one role, appropriately called Metro 1. They lead the command line at the back of the room. The Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center has been created to integrate and improve communications and coordination between modes, departments, and decision makers, thus improving Metro's response to emergencies. It makes efficient and accurate communication and decision-making possible. With this critical building block in place, there is an unprecedented potential to improve incident management across the agency. I'll hand it back to Nakia.
Thank you, Roy. So away from the Command and Communication Center, how Metro leads and coordinates at the scene of an emergency incident is the other critical part to ensure effective and consistent incident management. Launched in July 2024, Metro moved to the new incident management framework, which aligns policies and procedures to communicate with our jurisdictional fire and police departments. It makes it easier. We've trained over 6,000 in our introductory course starting in 2023. But there's more practice, training, and real-life application required before Metro can claim improved, consistent results and how we respond and make decisions at the scenes of incidents. 2024 will see us deliver refresher training to thousands of employees and provide targeted scenarios and drills to our population, most needed to have the skills, knowledge, and competence to take on incident command in the field. I want to talk now about our training and overseeing incident management. Safety plays a critical role in overseeing, training, and supporting operational staff during these emergencies. Our safety staff specialists in response and recovery own the incident management framework documents and delivers the trainings not only to Metro operational colleagues, but also 1,500 external police and fire departments. First responders. In 2023, we worked with Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, Loudoun, the Metro Washington Authority, Airport Authority, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, and the District of Columbia. These same personnel also act as primary responders to provide technical assistance and incident command expertise during emergencies as support and as a coach to WMATA incident commanders in the field. Safety personnel and the prevention and mitigation team critically convert emergencies to hard data that inform and improves performance by preventing incidents from occurring and mitigating the disruption or harm they cause. These actions come from the full emergency management cycle and also align perfectly with the broader safety strategy of the safety management system to use data to systematically recognize hazards and implement mitigations to safely reduce safety risk. Focused in part on post-incident data, prevention and mitigation specialists gather information from the rapid debriefs or hot washes that occur on scene after many of these incidents, from staff who monitor execution of the incident management framework, and then from in-depth collaborative after-action reviews, often with police or fire departments that attend these incidents, following practically complex or large incidents. There have been about 28 this year, 28 since 2022 when we implemented the after-action reporting. Information from these sources are then assessed and converted into mitigations that are tracked through to completion. It is for operations and infrastructures to implement change in most cases, but safety plays the role of facilitator and assurance. With some of the staff and safety's prevention and mitigation team focus on post-incident mitigation, other safety personnel focus on preemptive actions to identify and mitigate hazards before they cause an incident. The best example of this is Metro's fire marshal, who actually leads a prevention and mitigation team. He leads an inspection program which purposefully integrates with other safety inspections to cover building code, fire detection, and fire protection systems in over 300 facilities and wayside locations. The team manages emergency action plans for all Metro facilities and ensures all hazard drills are executed by staff. The fire marshal has also formalized participation in the project life cycle of major projects like the 7 new rail station and our battery electric buses, where he's engaged early in project review throughout via the safety certification process and also at the end of overseeing fire life safety elements at the acceptance testing. So in conclusion, there are multiple functions working together to deliver and improve Metro's emergency preparedness capability and performance. Much progress has been made in 2023, and now more steps are being taken across multiple teams to mature and refine procedures and training, but ultimately move us to becoming a leader in the field, across the region, and in transit nationally. Thank you, Chairman. And Roy and I are able to take questions at this time.
Fantastic. Thank you for an outstanding presentation. A lot of folks are not familiar with what it takes to be prepared in the emergency response, and we're doing it well here. So thank you for the depth of that work. You've answered all the questions that I have already, and what I'll do is open the floor to committee members. Any questions, comments?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you guys so much for your presentation, for your pre-briefing, and for the work that you are doing. This is amazing. And I know that we are going to continue to put safety and security, not just of our customers, but of our WMATA family first. Thank you.
Thank you, board member.
Any other board members?
Yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. I appreciate the investment in the teams because the people themselves are the first line of preparedness and mitigation and response. I'm curious, at times in the past, there's been concerns about not just the people, but not as much concerns about people, but about equipment and whether everybody knows how to use the same thing and everything works together. Is that a remaining issue? And if so, or has it been addressed?
I think we've done well to train our jurisdictional partners with the same equipment that we use here at Metro. For example, how to use the hot stick WSODs. Also protective PPE or your protection equipment like electrical gloves, and understanding the importance of using that every time that they're in our system or being engaged with our equipment. But that also puts us side by side when we have major incidents and we need to put down, let's say, a WSOD prior to, that they're just as familiar as we are and understand the importance of why we're doing it to keep everyone safe on the roadway.
To add, also, we've made significant investment in our training apparatus. So we now have the ability to enhance our simulation efforts. So when we bring in the jurisdictional first responders, we can simulate smoke type events, we can simulate the kiosk, the train, we can get them onto that in a consequence-free environment. So we've already reaped some benefits and we have some plans to enhance that under creating the Training Center of Excellence and Training Academy.
Thank you.
Director, I'd just add quickly that COG has a fire department function that, you know, we're actively involved in, and Roy and his team had that group, including Chief Donnelly from DC, up there for a tour. And I do think seeing the MEC, I think we are the only transit agency that has a fire life safety professional embedded in the control center on the command line. So I think, you know, the idea of using that and really seeing what it is that we envision with the MIC and having those type of relationships and feedback has been really, really helpful. We do a drill a couple of times a year, as Nakia talked about, and I think that's really where we get direct feedback from them about the training they need and what else they require from us. But I think the relationships really matter when it comes to dealing with these issues.
Great, thank you. I think we're going to be obviously reaping the benefits of the Integrated Control Center for years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smedberg?
Thank you. Ms. Bradley, Mr. Aguilera, thank you for your presentation today. Teresa and Brian, it's always nice to see you, but it's also nice to see the people, you know, being able to present who are day-to-day doing this, you know, on the organization's behalf. So really appreciate it, and thank you for your comprehensive presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Santos?
Thank you. A slightly different question. So this is wonderful, and I second what's just been said. I'm curious what lessons learned from the procurement of prior equipment. As I understand, Director Worth and I had a conversation about this yesterday, but what lessons learned from procurement of equipment are getting factored into procurement of new trains, how this relates to safety?
So one of the things that we've been doing is keeping a log of lessons learned, specifically with our buses and with our 7000 series equipment. Anytime we encounter any challenges in the after action briefings, we're flagging any issues that are equipment related. So for example, we've flagged some concerns about the ability for ongoing communications from an operator in the operating cab throughout the train set in the event of power failures. And we've incorporated that into some of the specifications for our procurement of the 8000 series train, as well as having made upgrades throughout the remainder of the fleet. So we are keeping those lessons learned. We're gaining them through firsthand customer experience reports, as well as reports that are being generated in the after action reporting kind of integrated process that we've established.
Thanks, that sounds great.
Okay. Again, thank you for a great presentation. We'll move to the next topic. Jamie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Drummer and members of the committee. So I'm Jamie Johnson, Senior Vice President of Safety, and this is Shashil, the Chief Mechanical Officer in charge of rail cars. Today we'd like to provide you and the public with an update on the incident and ongoing investigation of the cause of the smoke incident at Eastern Market Metro Rail Station on February the 15th. This follows our update to the board on the same matter 2 weeks ago. As our strategic transformation plan lays out, we aspire to service excellence. Part of providing excellent service is providing our customers with information on an open and transparent basis. Usually, probable causes of incidents are identified in the first few hours after an incident. The reason we're presenting again today on this topic is because, despite an extensive and rigorous diagnostic set of activities on many fronts across many departments in infrastructure operations and safety and readiness, the probable cause of this incident has not yet been identified. So we feel it's important to outline the steps that have been taken so the public have a full understanding and insight on this matter. But before we cover the detail, I want to make clear that Metro is taking this matter very seriously, is working extremely hard to find the probable cause, and has operational mitigations in place to ensure that Metro continues to run a very safe service for our customers. So we'll start with, I'll just provide you with an outline of the incident as a reminder, an update on after action since that incident, and then Shashil will take us through some items related to the investigation. So with regards to the incident, we have covered this before, but I think it's good just to give you a recap. On Thursday, February the 15th, a Silver Line 7000 series train en route to Ashburn pulled into Eastern Market Station. Earlier in its run, one of the train's collector shoe assemblies, and I'll explain that in a little, had dislodged and it grounded just after Stadium Armory Station, which in turn caused a second collector shoe assembly on the same rail car to fail and ground when the train pulled into Eastern Market platform. This caused arcing and smoke and fire in the station. Rail operations personnel and Metro Transit police officers arrived on scene swiftly, and customers on the train and in the station were swiftly evacuated. Now, on the right here is the photo of the damaged collector shoe assembly, which is the element that failed in this case. I want to take a moment just to describe this. As a reminder, the correct collector shoe assembly comprises three parts. The first is a spring-loaded metal shoe or plate. It's about the size of my hand that you can't see in this diagram. The second is a central block with fuse and electrical leads that transfer the power from the third rail to the subsystems on the train to run the propulsion, the lights, etc. You can see that suspended in this case at the center of the photo. And then there is a surround and mounting bracket made of fiberglass, which is the sort of red box-like item at the bottom of the photo. It's worth noting that while not desired, it is not uncommon for trains to lose the collector shoe itself, so the flat piece of metal the size of my hand, during day-to-day operations due to an obstruction on the track or a minor defect in the third rail. In fact, collector shoes are designed to break off in order to protect the assembly and wayside assets. Indeed, we have seen some instances like this over the last couple of weeks. But those are unrelated to this incident, and it is much less common for the whole assembly to fail and be dislodged, and that is the focus of this investigation. But before we discuss the details of the investigation, I want to provide an update on the post-incident actions when it comes to response and recovery from the incident itself and any lessons we've learned. A multi-agency after-action review was conducted by Metro the day after the last board meeting on Monday, on February the 23rd, involving Metro departments and DC police and fire departments. There was agreement that unified command between the DC Fire Department, DC Metropolitan Police Department, and Metro Transit Police was quickly established and run well to coordinate resources and decisions. The after-action review revealed that communication between Incident Command and the Metro Integrated Command and Communications Center worked well, overcoming the communications challenges of a fast-moving incident like this one. The station manager and Metro's 2 contracted security officers on duty at the station helped evacuate the 31 passengers aboard the train and the remaining few passengers who were in the station. And procedures were followed to activate the station ventilation fans. However, there's always opportunity to learn from such incidents, and the group agreed that improvements could be made to streamline radio communications during an incident like this. And there is still work to do, as Nakia mentioned earlier, to provide everyone at Metro with confidence and competence in our new integrated incident management framework, which guides us to manage incidents effectively. And lastly, the fire department staff expressed a desire for more training on how our ventilation fans work. But with that, I would like to hand over to Shashil now to provide a comprehensive update on the steps we have taken and to continue to take to diagnose the probable cause of this collector shoe assembly issue.
Good morning, board members, and thank you, Jamie, for the review of the Easton Market incident. This morning, I'm here to provide an update on the investigation into a probable cause. While the investigation is ongoing, we have already completed several mitigations and are undertaking more detailed testing. This work spans multiple groups, including operations, infrastructure, and safety and readiness. Immediately following the Easton Market incident, we commenced a fleet-wide inspection of all rail cars. The goal of this inspection was to identify any damage to collector shoes and with a focus on fractures to the assembly. This fleet inspection commenced with the 7000 series, which was completed on February 23rd, and then moved to the legacy fleets, which was then completed on February 28th. We are taking the most conservative approach with these inspections and replacing any collector shoes or assemblies with any potential issues. Moving forward, railcar maintenance is using improved procedures for these inspections. It is important to note that the existing procedures already meet or exceed industry standards. However, out of an abundance of caution, the inspection procedures have been improved and further enhanced in order to assist us with proactively identifying potential issues with the assemblies or shoes. These procedure improvements undergo a multi-department quality review with approval by the Safety and Readiness Department. In conjunction with the updated procedures, Railcar Maintenance has instituted internal auditing of 100% of all collector assembly and collector shoe replacements on a corrective maintenance basis. This work is being supported independently by spot auditing from the Safety and Readiness Department. Further, we have also engaged outside consultants, including the original equipment manufacturer, as well as experts, to help us understand how Metro's processes and specifications compare to peers in the industry. This effort will help further inform Metro's maintenance and inspection practices. We are continuing to review vehicle and maintenance data. The vehicle data helps us to understand the operation of the rail cars and can inform targeted track inspections of the system. Further, analysis of the maintenance data can help us to understand if there are anomalies in the current behavior of the systems relative to their historic behavior. At this time, the data analysis has not revealed any concrete findings for us to act upon. Finally, on the vehicle side, we'll be starting a test program next week. The intent of this test is to measure salient characteristics of Metro's system, which includes third rail height, third rail current, video analysis of the shoe and third rail interaction, contact forces, and thermal imagery of the system. Again, it is important to note that many elements of this test plan are already conducted by Metro using our existing maintenance and inspection processes. However, due to an absence of immediate root cause, we're undertaking a holistic and integrated testing approach, which will then inform data to narrow down potential areas via an exclusionary diagnostic process. The track and structure and power departments are also investigating any potential infrastructure causes. Using the track geometry vehicle, inspections have been completed on all rail lines. This inspection vehicle measures different elements of the roadway, including the height of the third rail. It serves to inform track and structures with identifying any potential track areas that may be out of tolerance, and any such areas are immediately followed up with visual inspections and physical measurements. To date, no findings from the TGV have been found to be a definitive probable cause. In addition to the track geometry vehicle inspections, track has also concluded walking inspections of the entire system. These walking inspections are visual inspections and have not identified a probable cause. Similar to the vehicle side, track and infrastructure are also engaging outside consultants to assist with this ongoing investigation. In conjunction with these efforts, they are also measuring the height of every third rail end approach in the system. As this investigation remains open, Metro has several ongoing actions to ensure that all staff remain aware and alert for any related incidents. This includes communication in operations and infrastructure staff on what to look for. Staff notices have been issued via the Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center to rail transportation and rail car maintenance. For any incident that may be related, an immediate coordination call is activated to ensure that all parties are informed and engaged as quickly as possible. Finally, starting last week, a multidisciplinary group is meeting daily with a focus on investigation updates as well as coordinating the ongoing efforts across the departments. We will continue to keep the board updated on these ongoing efforts. We are taking any incident seriously at this point due to the absence of a root cause. Any new events are being investigated fully and are not being excluded until a root cause is identified. Recent incidents have been investigated and root causes found, and concluding they are unrelated to the collector shoe assembly issue. 3 of these events occurred over the past weekend, with debris on the roadway catching fire, resulting in a smoke event. And also on March 3rd, railcar maintenance reporting 34 collector shoes missing during a routine daily inspection. This report initiated an inspection by the Track and Structures Department, who found the missing collector shoes near the wheelie residence station. It's important to note, as Jamie mentioned, that the collector shoes are designed to be sacrificial so that they break off without causing failure or damage to the railcar and the vehicle. While the breaking off is undesirable, it does demonstrate that the shoes work as designed and as intended and does not automatically equate to a safety incident. Since we are taking a conservative approach, this is triggering an investigation into each individual event. Upon further inspection, it was identified that the end approach of the third rail was high, and emergency maintenance was completed to address this issue. To mitigate events like these until the root cause is found, operations and infrastructure are implementing several actions. Firstly, Track and Structures has communicated to staff to be vigilant for trash in the track bed and immediately remove debris as quickly as possible without interfering with operations. They're also looking for missing collector shoes during the daily inspections, and as these shoes are found, they are immediately reported and removed from the wayside. Operations, infrastructure, and safety and readiness are collaborating on developing processes for communicating inspections related to the collector shoe assemblies. Lastly, Track and Structures is currently measuring track heights with a focus on the end approach, which is where a collector shoe is most likely to be knocked off. I'd like to thank you for your time today, and Jamie and I will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very, very much. Excellent presentation, crystal clear. And I just want to say thank you for leaning forward in the investigation in pursuit of root causes and really anticipating any other issue that might happen. At this time, I'll open the floor to committee members, and we'll begin with Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for this. This is good in terms of our efforts on transparency and everything, so really appreciate that. Shashil, you mentioned 34 shoes were found. So that would beg the question, is that normal on any given day or during a week, a month? I mean, that seems a little high.
So that is a high number of shoes, and I think it demonstrates the efficacy of the processes for communication across departments that are currently being put in place. So once those shoes were identified and a large population, the track department was immediately notified and conducted an inspection of the area. They were able to physically validate the report of the shoes missing, and as a result of that investigation, were able to identify the high end approach on the third rail and then correct that.
And were they experiencing these kinds of numbers prior to this more thorough review and investigation?
The data at this point does not provide any evidence that we are seeing a high rate of collector shoes. This seems to be an isolated event.
Okay, so then that leads to the question I was going to ask outright. It seems, so why is this happening now? And go ahead. So just sort of a simple question. Why is this happening now?
So we don't know, which is why we're conducting this comprehensive collaborative test. And the intent of the test is to characterize our entire system. Individually, on the rail car and track and structure sides, there are well-established maintenance and inspection processes. this test will cross-collaborate with the departments where the vehicles under load on the infrastructure will measure the characteristics to determine if there's an issue when both elements of the wayside are combined. So that is part of the investigative process. There are no obvious root causes, such as the wheelie reston, which was a high-end approach on the third rail. So the collector assembly damage at this point is still under investigation.
And are there records of shoe sort of break-offs or failures prior to this more formal review?
There are. So we do keep maintenance records of every collector shoe that is damaged or broken off, and these are inspected daily prior to service, and shoes that are either damaged or worn are replaced as part of our normal routine maintenance. What is important is this new structure for cross communication between the departments ensures that when vehicle teams or track teams identify collector shoes, they are communicating to each other so that we can try to pinpoint root cause, whether vehicle or wayside.
Okay, appreciate that. And how is this informing anything with the 8000 series review?
So as the root cause is still not determined, it has not informed the 8000 design to date. The 8000 series collector assemblies and shoes use the existing design, which historically we have not had any issues at Metro. So important to note, the collector assembly and collector shoes that are on the 7000 series are very similar to those on the 6000 and the 2 and 3000s. So there's a long operational history with these components, which is why the immediate root cause isn't identified.
And my last question, just take these 34 that you highlighted in your presentation. Are they from 7000 series cars, 6000, 3000, or across the board?
For this particular incident, it was 7000 series cars, but it is important to note that this is also a result of where the cars operate predominantly. So on the Silver Line, we have a larger population of 7000 series cars compared to legacy cars. So there is good confidence that it is not related to the 7000 series fleet specifically.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from any other board members? Seeing and hearing none. Again, thank you very much for leaning forward and staying ahead of this. And Randy, thank you for requesting this update.
Thank you, Chair Drama.
With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned, and we're going to take a brief break before beginning the Board of Directors meeting. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Smedberg, Chair of the WMATA Board. Thank you for being here today. Since we called the roll at an earlier committee meeting, we'll move right to the approval of the agenda. I'd like to consider the agenda approved with one amendment or change: removal of appointment of MTPD Investigation Review Panel item. Is there, or are there any objections to the agenda as amended? Hearing and seeing none, the agenda is approved. We look forward to bringing back this item at a future date. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes for approval: the board meeting and executive session from February 22nd, 24. I'd like to consider these minutes approved as presented. Does anyone have any comments or objections to either set of minutes? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes are approved as presented. Thank you. First, we have our employee spotlight. The first board spotlight today recognizes bus operator Michael Villigray. Operator Villigay was nominated for his professional behavior during an unprovoked verbal confrontation by an unidentified male patron. During the incident, the patron made racist comments and threatened to physically harm him. Operator Villigray used the technique he learned in assault reduction training class. He remained calm and operated the bus safely until the patron alighted on the bus. This incident was witnessed by WMATA alternate board member Kanika Gary. According to board member Gary, the bus operator on my route was almost assaulted. I will say the driver, Miguel, conducted himself in a very professional manner throughout the situation. Bus operator Villigray displayed exemplary customer service and professionalism during this incident. Thank you for your job. Very well done. Thank you. The second board spotlight recognizes Senior Detective Brandon Twentyman, right? There we are. With our Metro Transit Police Department. In January 24, following a harrowing incident aboard Metro Bus 7205 in the District of Columbia, with a report of shots fired, Detective Twentyman emerged as a beacon of resilience and justice. Through tireless coordination with the Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Unit, Detective Twentyman orchestrated a rapid response leading to the identification and arrest of two suspects within hours of the offense. Moreover, his investigative expertise helped identify a third suspect, culminating in the issuance of a warrant for their arrest. Detective Twentyman is responsible for multiple dangerous suspects being identified and arrested. They will face several weapon offenses, robbery charges, and due to Senior Detective Twentyman's coordination, homicide charges in MPD cases. Detective Twentyman's unwavering dedication to public safety and his firm commitment to serve WMATA employees and our community were exemplified through his actions. His leadership and determination not only ensured justice for the victim, but also underscored his profound commitment to safeguarding the community. Thank you, Senior Detective Twentyman. And finally, we'd like to recognize Lieutenant Marcus McIntyre of MTPD. Lieutenant McIntyre has been pivotal in fostering youth development throughout his unwavering commitment to coaching kids basketball every weekend. This initiative is not just about the sport, it serves as a platform for mentoring, instilling positive values, and building character among our young citizens. His efforts have significantly bridged gaps between the youth and MTPD, nurturing a sense of trust and camaraderie that extends beyond the basketball court. Moreover, his active participation in community events has been instrumental in strengthening the bond between our police force and the community we serve. In addition to his community engagement efforts, Lieutenant McIntyre worked with the crisis intervention team his work with the crisis intervention team further exemplifies his exceptional skills and empathy. His contributions in this area underscore MTPD's commitment to compassion and effective crisis management. Thank you for your contributions to our communities, Lieutenant McIntyre. Now I'd like to ask all our employee spotlight members to come up front.
One, two, three, and 1, 2, 3. One, two, three, and 1, 2. Anybody else? One, 2, 3. 1, 2.
List of speakers. Go to the next page.
So we have questions.
Just comments here in person, so it's Rico. Can you write it down for you?
Now we'll move on to our public comment and reports from our advisory boards. First, we didn't receive any comments online, so we'll move to our in-person speakers. Rico Dancy.
Good afternoon. So I'm gonna talk about MPD first, Metro Police, y'all Ramada Police first. We're gonna talk about the VRI where they said they have the right username, but they don't have the right password. That's the first thing. They need to make sure all your Ramada Police Department have the right password. 2 weeks ago, I met an officer named Harrison. He said he had the right username, but he cannot log in because he had the wrong password. Now let's talk about Metro Access. For people who on dialysis, people who go to work, people who go to church, people cannot, if they cut the service, I'm a home giver. I take care of my LEO, my wife who is home. I take care of her every day. So if you so you talk about people who's on dialysis, people who go to church, people who go to work, people who go to the grocery store. If they cut the service, what is people going to do? Is Ramada going to take us to the grocery store? Are they going to take us to the church? Are they going to take people who go to dialysis? These people I care about. People with a disability should have a voice every day. And I'm very concerned about that. Thank you.
Denise Rush.
Bring it to her.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank the board members that sat and listened to the people testify. I want to thank the police who came on a second when we needed them last Tuesday. It's very hard to explain to the public that if you don't have your money to spend, you can't decide exactly what you're going to buy. And that's where we are. They have heard everything and how the public really feels, not from the AAC, but from the person that it's affecting. But you can't make a decision until you know what you have, how much money you have to spend. So we're going to have to be patient and try not to worry. It's not easy, but if you put that in your mind, Randy, I know we're close, but I didn't know you were going to step in my shoes. I always say, are you going to wear my shoes and see how they fit? I hope you're understanding how hard it is to get around. I'm sorry that you're on crutches or a crutch, but it's a way to know how it's not easy to do that. I am concerned that we're spending money that we don't have. We're not going to need the 800 cars or the new buses because nobody's going to be able to ride. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rush. Thank you. Stuart Schwartz.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. My name is Stuart Schwartz. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Smarter Growth. Our mission is to advocate for walkable, bikeable, inclusive, and transit-oriented communities as the most sustainable and equitable way for the Washington region, D.C. region to grow and provide opportunities for all. First, I wish to commend the WMATA team on the Strategic Transformation Plan, the data you are collecting and sharing, and the progress to date. We also hope that the bus network redesign and bus transformation measures can be expedited. Second, our team promoted and attended 3 of the 4 WMATA budget hearings and were impressed by the turnout of riders representing all walks of life who are concerned about proposed service cuts and fare increases, even the more limited ones referred to in the updated draft budget. So while we are very appreciative of the proposed commitment of $480 million in additional funding by the jurisdictions and the temporary lifting of the artificially constraining 3% cost cap, it has been our hope that the jurisdictions could do more and fully close the gap to avoid service impacts discussed at the hearings. We note that our region is committed to slash its greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, to locate 75% of jobs and housing in high-capacity transit stations, and to make 75% of that new housing affordable, as well as addressing regional inequities, including the east-west economic divide. But we cannot achieve these goals unless we fully fund Metro for its frequent, reliable, safe, and affordable service. Metro is the backbone, the framework for a more sustainable region, and should be our top transportation priority. We urge the region to reach a memorandum of agreement by the end of this calendar year on a long-term dedicated funding solution and any proposed improvements to WMATA reporting and oversight, and we request that key stakeholders have a seat at the table. This would include the Riders Advisory Council, nonprofit advocacy organizations, business community, unions, and others, sharing with elected officials this work. Finally, we believe that General Manager Clark has demonstrated exceptional regional leadership. So we will be awarding the Coalition for Smarter Growth's Livable Community Leadership Award to him on May 29th at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library in the heart of downtown DC. As has been the case with our past awards, this award by implication also serves as a recognition for the hard work of this board and the entire WMATA workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Now we'll hear from the Accessibility Advisory Committee's chair, Patrick Sheehan.
Thank you very much.
Hang on. I don't know how it is my phone goes off just when I walk up here. Luck, I guess. Like everybody else, I would like to congratulate the board for attending the hearings. I think they were well done. The disability community showed up, and I was very pleased about that. And so, as Denise said, we will wait and see what the results are. But I appreciate board members that were there and attended the hearings. And Randy, Denise was saying to me that what she asked for to walk in her shoes was a figure of speech. If she knew that you were going to comply with that, she probably would have asked for more. Also, with respect to the hearings and the survey, I also took the survey, and I want to compliment the survey designer and the work that was done on the survey. Someone who uses a screen reader to access their computer. The survey was very well done, very compliant, very well structured, and easy to get through. It was a long survey, but it was well done. It seems like we talked last week, so not much has happened in that time. But I would like to say that as far as Metro Access is concerned, the new Metro Access vehicles that are planned to be tested and purchased by September have been briefed to the AAC. We look forward to the new vehicles. Many of the updates that we requested are in these vehicles. Particularly, I think the low floor ramps are going to be good. The seats seem to be more comfortable. I think it'll be a smoother ride than the ones that we have. And also you'll be able to put more wheelchairs in those vehicles. So we really appreciate that. On the bus and rail side, these transformation projects that were just talked about today, I think are going to be interesting. I'd like to be able to get those slides over to the Bus Rail Committee so that they could take a look at them, I think come up to speed on those initiatives going forward, including things like the Better Bus Network, see where we go with respect to that in the future. And then lastly, I know that we received direction from the board, and we have promised to work on our bylaws. We are about 50% complete with those. We would have gotten further with those, but really December, January, and February, we're really taken up with budget issues, listening to the community. Our meetings were packed. We also did extensive outreach through Virginia, DC, and Maryland, through the Washington Ear and other disability communication channels. So I think that we got a good representation of the disability community, but it did eat up a lot of our time. That's all I have for a short report today, but thank you so much for working with us, and we look forward to 2025. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions or comments for Mr. Sheehan? All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Patrick.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Next, I'll call on Mr. Leibowitz for the RAC report, and Michael is joining us via Teams today. Good afternoon, Michael.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Metro riders virtually today. Work commitments didn't allow me to make it over in time, so I apologize for not being there in person this time. So the RAC held its monthly meeting last night. We were joined by Director Martin Proctor, and we're really impressed with her level of engagement and her feedback and her obvious concern and respect for riders and the issues that affect them. So thank you. The RAC certainly welcomes others from the board to attend RAC meetings moving forward. I know Randy Clark has attended in the past, so always welcome everybody at the table. During our meeting last night, the RAC addressed one issue that has kind of festered among bus riders, particularly those who ride late at night as part of the 24/7 service. And I know that you heard about some of this today during one of the presentations. But specifically, there does seem to be issues, or at least the perception of issues, among riders with wait times and real-time tracking late at night. According to riders, both on the rack from their firsthand personal experience and riders who've spoken with us through our outreach, this has caused some safety concerns and among other issues, and has been a disincentive to use the late night buses for many people. Jeff Hyatt from Metro's bus transformation, the vice president, attended the meeting last night and was very candid in addressing the issue and left us with the impression that Metro is taking the issue seriously and working on solutions, which we very much appreciate. We understand that Metro is still working on fixing the problems. So we suggested that staff consider letting the riders know that they're on it and that they're fixing the technical bugs. We want the 24/7 program to succeed. I think it's important and it's useful. And part of that, I think, is keeping riders in the loop. The RAC also discussed the new bus fare boxes and the train fare gates. For the bus fare boxes, we understand that some of them still are failing, causing people not to be able to pay even when they want to. So the RAC has asked for more information on whether Metro is resourced to quickly fix the boxes when a reboot doesn't work on those fare boxes, or if the remote fix is an option. And if not, the RAC revisited an earlier recommendation about employing something of what we called a quick reaction force. So when a bus fare box fails and it can't be repaired remotely or rebooted, then a technician can meet up with the bus and essentially fix the fare box while on the move, obviously taking in safety into consideration, but also to avoid disrupting service. And regarding the new fare gates, we're hearing something of a mixed bag in the fare evasion department, which I'm sure it's will not surprise any of you. We still see people climbing over the gates. They're just being a little more gymnastic about it to avoid paying. But this is contrasted by, like, for example, Petworth at Georgia Avenue, where riders have noticed long lines to get through the turnstiles because more people are indeed actually paying instead of jumping over. So the thing that has been reported to the RAC is more that tailgating has become kind of the bigger concern of late, involving riders' personal space, as fare evaders have kind of gotten more into getting real close up to customers. They can kind of sneak in behind them, when the gate opens up. So, but we do appreciate all the work that's going into that to kind of remedy these issues. Finally, the RAC's annual report is being drafted, and we expect to present it at the April board meeting. Our annual report committee has been working very hard to compile the information and bring top rider concerns directly to the board, along with recommendations and proposed solutions that come independently from the RAC and through our rider outreach. Preliminarily, it looks like riders' top concerns will once again continue to be longevity of the system and consistency of operations. So riders are waiting with bated breath for funding to hopefully be finalized, at least, again, I know we're talking about the short term for right now, so that then we can really get into kind of the long-term stability of the system. That's all I have. Any questions from the board?
Thank you, Michael. Any questions or comments to Mr. Leibowitz? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our advisory committee reports. Now we'll move on to the report of the chair. First, I'd like to thank all our customers and stakeholders participating in our budget public comment period, which concluded this past Tuesday. We had strong participation this year. We had over 70 people testify at our public hearings last week and many more in attendance. Additionally, we had over 8,000 people take the survey, and we received over 5,500 comments. Input was received from over 5,800 bus customers, 6,600 rail customers, and nearly 700 Metro Access customers. Again, thank you to everyone in making your voice heard. It definitely makes a difference. Next March is, or this, is it? No, this March.
No, next March it's like the next item.
Next, comma, from the English major.
There's a comma there.
Yeah, there is a comma there. Okay, I was like, wait a minute, why are we talking about next March? This is Women's History Month. Okay. Next, comma, March is Women's History Month. Each year, March is designated Women's History Month by presidential proclamation. This month is set aside to honor women's contributions in American history. The National Women's History Month theme for 2024 celebrates women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. The theme recognizes women throughout the country who understand that for a positive future, we need to eliminate bias from our lives and institutions. During 2024, we recognize women who are committed to embracing everyone and excluding no one in our common quest for freedom and opportunity. As members of families, civic and community groups, businesses, and legislative bodies, women are in the forefront of reevaluating the status quo. Throughout 2024, we honor local women from the past and present and who have taken the lead to show the importance of change and to establish firmer safeguards, practices, legislation reflecting these values. Following decades of discrimination, we are proud to celebrate women who work for basic inclusion, equity, and fairness. Finally, there are no more public board activities are scheduled for March 21st. Our next public meeting will be April 11th. That concludes my report, and now I'll turn the floor over to our GM for his report, Mr. Clark.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Before I get into the slides, if you can go back to the, thank you. I want to acknowledge, we had a tragic event in Metro this week, or earlier this week on the Red Line. A teenager was train surfing, and we had a tragic fatality. And I just kind of want to acknowledge that, really emphasize out there in the community that train surfing, being outside of a car, is clearly incredibly dangerous. We do not want people outside of rail cars without getting authorization from staff, and that would be during an evacuation. One of the things that we are going to be working on is a program with both the Transit Police Community Bureau, who was here earlier today, and our new Vice President of Community Engagement. And we're going to be looking at revising a campaign to really go out and interact, especially with schools and community members, to really try to get the word out, especially to teenagers, that these things on social media are not worth the risk. And we're really looking for people to just be safe on the system. So I just want to acknowledge that and mention that we have a campaign that we're working on. There will be more information coming on that, hopefully as early as next week, that we look forward to engaging on. Now to the slides themselves. I do have some good news that I do want to mention. Ridership continues to really go in the right direction, and there's a few things beyond the slide that I want to mention, but let's start with the slide. In February, ridership was 21% over February last year, which is, again, a really a good, it's not a couple percent here. 21 is a pretty big deal. Weekday, you'll notice on rail and bus, both up. Combined now is we're into that almost 800,000 a day on the average on weekday, and that takes into the Monday, Friday being a little softer. Weekend, we are now at a combined weekend ridership fully recovered to pre-pandemic levels. Weekends are doing incredibly well, and you'll see both bus and rail continuing growth there. A couple other highlights. Tuesday was the highest 8 a.m. rush hour we've had since the pandemic. So again, our core, if you will, commuter base continues to come back to the system. That's a great sign. Yesterday was the top day that we had taps from our federal worker proxy cards, and that was just over 75,000 federal workers on the system yesterday. So again, another good sign that kind of returning to some normalcy on travel patterns. Yesterday, and this goes to, I think Board Member Letourneau brought up on fare evasion. Yesterday was our second highest day of paid ridership since the pandemic, and the only day that was higher than yesterday was the day that there was that large Rally for Israel Day in November, where we had almost 120,000 more people than we had yesterday. So the proportion of paid ridership is actually going up by the day and certainly by the week, and that is a really, really good sign. And then just a last one of interest, yesterday was the highest ridership we had at Union Station since the pandemic, which used to be our #1 station, which is great because Union Station is such an important asset to this region and this city. And having that activity back shows an interaction with Amtrak, MARC, VRE, and just overall activity. So that is a really good sign that ridership is going in the right direction. Next up, it's almost cherry blossom season, as we all know. So fun things at Metro, we have our cards and our buses and trains. The bus and trains will be coming out March 15th. 20,000 commemorative cards will be available March 15th as well at those 4 stations. The other thing we want to highlight is we had some work scheduled for the Green Line next weekend, but we're going to suspend doing that work because cherry blossoms, I guess we're just going to have to accept climate change. We might have to do Cherry Blossom Festival in January, unfortunately, in the future. But we really want to deliver great service when there's good weather so people can get around, and we are clearly seeing growth in ridership. So we still have a small thing on the red line that we have to do next weekend, but we are going to suspend the construction activities on March 16th, so we can actually run 5 straight weeks of no construction to support our large crowds during cherry blossom. So we're really going to try to encourage people to get out there. So I would ask you to all think about channels that we can really make sure people know that we are going to be running great service for this entire period, and no one should take a car anywhere near the cherry blossoms. Next slide. As it was mentioned earlier, we have the Fleet of the Future, and we get that release out, and look forward to, hopefully many of you are going to be able to join us on the National Mall. Pretty iconic. I think a lot of us feel this will be one of those, in the 100 years of Metro, one of those moments that will be on that video, if you will. The last time this was done was LBJ in the late 60s, having the first fleet for Metro. But we want to highlight bus and rail, so our new electric buses plus our new 8000 series vehicles. So the team put together a little fun video. So if you'll indulge us, it's kind of a cute, fun way to really talk about the legacy of Metro, about Fleet of the Future.
Rapid transit has become a part of the metropolitan Washington scene, the result of efforts that date back almost to the turn of the century. From that beginning, Metro has continued its outward growth to aid mobility and add to the quality of life of more and more Metro area residents. From dream to reality.
It's been 56 years since Metro debuted its first rail car on the National Mall. This year, we're going back to the future.
That's Metro here. That's Metro now. That's Metro in the future.
As you can see, the team had a little fun with that. But kind of, what's really special about this organization, as much as we're trying to streamline and be like everyone else when it comes to some, if you will, normal operational things, we are always going to be unique and special because we are the national capital system. And we should have a lot of pride in that. And the iconic aspect of being on the National Mall during Cherry Blossom is pretty special. So I want to thank the Park Service. The Park Service has been absolutely amazing working with us. And we really look forward to getting all of our stakeholders. And we actually think we'll probably have tens of thousands of visitors be able to go on these vehicles and really check them out during Cherry Blossom Festival. So we're really, really excited about it. Last thing I want to highlight is safety security updates, things that we've kind of been talking about. So crime, we have crime rate down 14% January through February, and including most all categories are going down, and Chief Anzalo and the team are working incredibly hard on that. The fare gates are reducing fare evasion by about 70%, give or take, depending on the station. As we keep rolling them out, it's kind of really starting to get people in relation to origin destination patterns. We also have almost 100 special police officers out on the system every day. You probably have seen a lot more coverage about that, riding trains and on platforms. We think that is starting to make a difference both on the perception and on crime itself. I want to take a moment and highlight the Secure DC bill that was passed earlier this week. One is it requires individuals stopped by law enforcement officials to provide proper ID. This is obviously the issue Metro brought up significantly with the district, our inability to really do fair enforcement in DC. The second is enhanced penalties for people that do assault or, that type of activity against Metro employees, and those things like station managers and train and bus operators, things of that nature. It is a big problem if someone is going after a public servant doing their job, and this penalty enhances 1.5 times the accountability for that. I want to take a moment and just thank the entire DC Council, but very specifically Councilmember Pinto. Her leadership on this has been really, really appreciated, and she's worked with us on this bill. And then she's not here today, but Board Member Lowe has been a really true advocate in working with council member offices and council members directly on the importance of this to Metro. So I want to thank her. We think this is another tool in the toolbox that will continue not only to ensure we collect all of our fares, but further enhance safety on the system. And then lastly, as we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you to the board and the whole staff for all your support over the last few days. I've had a little bit of an injury. I do look forward to Denise and Patrick to being back out on the system and fully appreciating all the elements that all of our customers go through, but just appreciate everyone's support, and we will always move on. So with that, Chair, happy to take any comments, questions.
Any questions for Mr. Clark? Okay, thank you. Really appreciate it. Next, we'll move on to the reports by the jurisdictions. NBTC, I don't have anything. WSTC, Mr. McAndrew.
Just that the bills in terms of advancing our budget continue at pace in the Maryland General Assembly. The bill to ease the fare cap or the operating cap has moved through the House and over to the Senate, and we expect it to move from the Senate here soon. So things are moving well in the state of Maryland on our budget.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. District of Columbia, Ms. Santos. Ms. Worth.
No, although if I could just take a moment, the last time I was here was the time of the public hearing last Tuesday. We had a little bit of excitement. So just to say thank you again to the Metro team, specifically to the police, who really, for those who may not be aware, there was a bit of excitement because there was a loud noise, bright light right outside that window, and someone in the room mistakenly thought that it was a gunshot outside. So of course, there was a few minutes of consternation and as people took cover, and the police just did a wonderful job quickly reassuring everyone. We were able to get back to business shortly. So just again, a note of thanks.
Okay, thank you. Federal government, Ms. Klein, Ms. Martin Proctor.
Hi, thank you, Board Member Klein. I just have, on behalf of the federal government contingency, we just want to highlight Women's History Month. We celebrate and encourage women who helped us lead this nation to build a fairer and more just society. And today, we just want to salute Caroline Lee Count. She played an integral role in successfully integrating Philadelphia streetcars. We want to salute Mary J. Riggins, who actually created and invented the rail crossing gate. And we want to salute Nuria Fernandez, our former FTA administrator, who led the FTA, one of the nation's top transit officials, from 2021 to 2024, leaving a legacy of equity that is going to be carried forward with our Women of WMATA group, who I am happy to always support and look forward to seeing what we do in this new year.
Thank you. All right, with no further business to come before the board, we'll stand adjourned. I'll move now to a board executive session in accordance with the bylaws. I, Paul Smedberg, request that the board convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contract, contracts or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government. And E, audit matters and investigations to include, for example, audits of IT security matters and investigations to be referred for further criminal investigation or prosecution. And G, disposition of WMATA property or acquisition of real property for WMATA purposes, where discussion in public would adversely affect WMATA's negotiating or bargaining position. And H, development of WMATA position or of strategy on pending or proposed federal and state legislation. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Klein. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.